Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Tribes of Europa, Season 1, Episode 1. It's just called Chapter 1. So we'll start spoiler free, of course, because it is a first episode, and this is a vote winner every month on patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Our $10 and up patrons vote on a batch of pilots that we'll put up for vote from the past month or so, and this was the winner this time for the month. So this is a Netflix show. It's a science fiction Netflix show. A German show, at least going by the fact that it's half in German. There's some English, but...
I'm going to take a stab and assume German as well.
Yeah. But it's set in mainland Europe, obviously, but its countries have broken down. They don't exist anymore. It's set in this future in the 2070s. Around 2029, there was the Great Blackout, a global blackout of power. And a few years later, when civilization kind of re-emerged, civilization as we knew it had fallen apart, and everything, at least in Europe anyway, had broken down into tribes, into families, and that's kind of what the new status quo is. So we're in kind of a post-apocalyptic, slightly dystopian, depending on kind of where you are. Like, the main family we follow are in the woods, so it's very post-apocalyptic, kind of almost Horizon Zero Dawn, just without the robot dinosaurs. The main character, Liv, as soon as she walked out with a crossbow, I went, this is meant to be Aloy. She's Aloy. But there's no robot dinosaurs, though. It's, just a disappointment. Settle in.
This would have been better with robot dinosaurs. But to be fair,
many things would be
most
better.
things are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that wouldn't be. I don't think a robot dinosaur would improve Better Call Saul, but maybe distracting from all the good drama, but...
I'm sure they'd find a way.
But, yes, so... So we have kind of a core kind of MacGuffin mystery element. For a start, the characters don't actually know what caused the Great Blackout, which obviously in the main timeline of the show is about 45 years ago. So you have this thing where the characters who are in their late 50s and up can remember the world. They remember the civilization from before the blackout, but all the younger generations don't, and no one knows why what happened. But there is kind of a mystery. We get a third party, because we're introduced to our main family who are in the forest, living off the land. They don't really have any technology. They've got guns and crossbows and stuff, but they otherwise live a pretty simple kind of life. Then you have the sort of more villainous faction that we get to meet, the villains in the city, who do have vehicles, who do have some more technology, who do at least inhabit the buildings that have been left behind in the cities. So we have that. But we're interested in a third party as well. It sounds very mythological. I'm not necessarily convinced it actually is mythological. It's more just that a tribe took this name, I would assume.
I'm like 90% sure that's exactly what happened.
But they do seem to have new technology, which is rare. Like most people, the fact that there's technology that exists that didn't exist before the blackout is surreal to people when they see it. So that's kind of the big MacGuffin thing that gets the plot going. That's the big inciting incident and sets things going. So that is the basic gist of Tribes of Europa. So I will ask the question, Connor, did you enjoy the pilot of Tribes of Europa?
Not as much as I wanted to. I think it's got a lot of ideas and things that I really want to like. I think it's just hampered by its execution in a lot of areas.
The nicest thing I'm going to say about Tribes of Europa is that there's a scene very early on where we meet the main villain. There's only one scene of him in this episode, but we meet the main villain, the leader of the Crow gang. Or the Crow tribe, I should say. And he's this over-the-top character. He's got a big fur coat. He's got big platform shoes. He's got a cane. He's very hammy. He's chewing through the scenery. He's over-the-top at every facial expression. And the nicest thing I'm going to say about this episode is that it was not the absolute garbage train wreck that this scene made me think it was going to be. This scene made me think I was going to despise every minute that followed.
God. Do you know what? You had me worried for a second. Because when you were saying, there was one good thing you were going to say, and you started talking about this scene, I was like, surely you're not about to praise this scene of all things.
No. My praise is that the rest of the episode was not as bad as this scene.
For the most part. I think there's a moment at the end that I think is equally as bad.
Sure.
That is spoiler territory to kind of describe it.
We'll keep it spoiler light, obviously, here. Yeah, I think it kind of sums up. You talked about execution. I think that's probably my big first thing in the episode is that it has that kind of almost like daytime kids TV show look to it, almost at all times.
Feels really cheap.
Yeah. And it's not that it's not high quality in the sense that it's 4K Dolby Vision if that's how if you've got the capabilities. Like, it's really high quality in that sense. It's a lot of detail in the image and stuff like that. But ultimately, we're still in the woods for most of the episode, and that's not to say the effects when they pop up are that bad. I think there's there's a crashing jet sort of type moment early on in the episode, and it's not like cutting edge CG, but it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's not good. But it's not like really bad. It's standard TV levels of CG.
Yeah,
right?
It's not embarrassingly bad or anything. It doesn't stick out. It's just kind of like TV effects. That's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not really so much that. And maybe that's just a style choice that I'm never going to get into. That because we've encountered this before with some of the originals that have came from mainland Europe. Obviously not all of them. Some of them look great. Like Dark has a very stylized look and looks like it's supposed to, and I think that fits the tone of the show. Whereas here, I'm watching this, and it's giving me this kind of it's trying to do this synth score at times, which I thought was all right. But
I did not like the score at all. I'll get more into that in a minute.
This is the thing. I don't think it fit anything I was seeing, but I think the music itself is fine. It's just that the visual style does not complement the tone they're clearly going for with the music. And usually I would say that the visual style is the thing they're going for and the music's the thing that's wrong. I feel like here the music's hitting what they want it to, but the visual style is what's falling short and not living up to what the music's doing.
I think the music style, I get where you come from with the synth feeling.
Yes.
I think it doesn't hit the moments correctly. It doesn't play the beats as they should for the emotional things. Like it feels mistimed, and also there's just way too much music. Like it's near constant throughout the entire episode.
I have that problem with a lot of things too. If it doesn't give you a moment to breathe, it just kind of feels like it almost feels like everything's a montage if you never stop the music.
After about 4 minutes in, I was very aware of already, like, oh my god, there's like been nothing longer than 10 or 15 seconds without music. It was every scene constantly. And because I was aware of it so early, I was kind of on edge with it all episode, and it was just like that the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, the main cast are just fine. Like, they're not particularly standout. Like, I didn't. I felt like the main cast, which are this family. We have the older sister Liv, who's kind of our main character to a point. I mean, it's kind of an ensemble, but she's kind of the one who's maybe central to a bit the most. Her father's there, of course, but she has two brothers who are kind of the two other main characters. One, because her and the older brother, who is Keanu, not Keanu. It doesn't spell like Keanu Reeves, but with a note at the end. But still, it sounds the same when you say it. But Keanu, he's like, they're both like young adult kind of. She's maybe like 20, he's like 18, whatever. So they're both kind of in that range. But then the younger brother's maybe like more like 13, 14, so he's a bit younger, a bit more naive. He's just learning how to hunt, because obviously that's what they do. They hunt a lot because they're in the forest, and that's how
he's clearly going through a ritual to, all right, yeah, this is your becoming a man sort of moment.
Yeah, this is he's bat mitzvah, Horizon Zero Dawn style, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah.
But and it's all fine, and then they've got an uncle as well who's got like a hook for a hand, and it's like, he lost his hand like 10 years ago, and something like the bad tribe did this to him. So this tells you how, because the whole thing with this tribe in the forest is that they're very much on we stay away from all the other tribes. We are hidden in the forest. We are away from the rest of civilization because it's dangerous, and they're all vicious and mean and bad.
They're kind of the Amish of this world.
Kind of. Now, admittedly, what we see of the other tribes they've got a point. Like, it looks like, yes, that it's all vicious and vile and whatnot.
That's hard. I mean, there's a tribe where they go to visit one of their places at one point, and we don't see that much of them, but it seems relatively normal there.
It's neighbouring, yeah, but they seem to be willing to go and speak to this tribe occasionally. So they kind of acknowledge they're not like one of the...
Right. So I'm assuming that this other tribe are not inherently, bloodthirsty maniacs like the Crows. True.
But clearly, it's worth staying away from the cities, and it's worth sticking to yourself. That's their whole philosophy. To a fault, almost, where they're like, even when the kids start asking questions, the older son is like, he's getting that curiosity. He wants to kind of run away and go see. And this was actually what something to sum up kind of the feeling with the characters in this episode, is that it introduces the idea that he is starting to have this itch to leave and like go and explore the world. He wants to see all these things with his own eyes, even if it is dangerous. He wants to explore. And that's fine. And there's a moment where he asks a girl who we only see in one scene, but he's making out with her, so clearly this is his girlfriend or whatever. And he brings up the idea of running away, and she kind of just laughs it off like, you crazy, right? Which is fine, but it does this thing where it introduces this idea, but it's also not like he's like ready to pack and leave the next morning. It's this vague notion he has of, maybe I'll do this soon kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really feel like it's got an urgency to it. I would agree that the concepts in general aren't too bad. I think there's some ideas here, particularly with what gets the plot going, and maybe arguably there's maybe like a good 15-20 minutes of like just too much like this, get into the rituals of this tribe stuff that's not that interesting before the plot really starts. But
it's kind of why I said I didn't like this as much as I wanted to, because if I just boiled down the plot ideas without ever watching it, I'd say, oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the premise involves, I won't say exactly the names or anything, but the third party, this jet that crashes at the start, the villainous tribe are after whoever was on that jet and something that they have, and of course that person ends up making their way or is found by some of our main characters, and that's kind of what propels the plot. That's just the gist of how the story starts.
Yeah.
And the younger son's like curiosity, and like he seems to have this fascination of the older world and wants to know why the Black December is what they call it. The Great Blackout happened.
It's got a shrine of like old electronics.
Yeah, it was like a Vita there and an iPod.
Yeah.
And
like there was gonna be a PS Vita you could find in 2029.
You never know. Maybe this is the Vita 2. Maybe this is foreshadowing that.
Yes, they're totally going to try that again.
Well, they're probably going to do PSVR 2, so I mean, why not Vita 2 as well?
Do you know what? You're right. Sony have learned nothing. What do I know?
They always come back around to the wacky ideas. I tell you, I shit you not, PS Home 2 is coming. But it's going to be VR this time, so we're all going to live in this. Hey, that'd have been great for the pandemic. All of us going into the VR world and just being like, let's hang out in VR.
All I'm saying is, Sony peripherals peaked with the iToy.
I'm not a peripheral person. I don't buy peripherals for things.
I mean, it was basically just a camera. It was like the precursor to Kinect, if in many ways.
Okay, well, regardless, the kid's got this shrine of all things, and newspaper articles talking about the blackout and all the rest of it. So the mystery of what happens is going to be a driving force, and the idea is that this third party might have answers that they're going to lead to at some point. That's basically all we can say in terms of plot, I think, before spoilers.
In terms of plot, I would say as well, though, it concerns me that this is only 6 episodes. Not that I want to watch more, clearly, but at this pace, with this amount of stuff it's throwing in, it feels like it needs at least 8 episodes to develop this stuff, properly.
I mean, that's conjecture, really. I mean,
it is.
I'm not willing to watch the 6 episodes to find out if I agree that they don't have it paced correctly. So
I'm not either. It's just a hunch based on the pace of this episode and how much they introduce. It feels like 6 episodes isn't enough to do it properly, and I could be wrong there.
The only reason why I'm skeptical of that statement is because I can totally see this being a 2-hour movie that would hit all these beats and have all these elements and still work. I'm sure I've seen it kind of done in like B movies and stuff before, where you have the basic setup of what's going on here. You have the third party, you have the villainous tribe that are hunting them through the post-apocalyptic way. I mean, hell, the Italians, they excelled at this in the 80s, doing knockoffs of this style. Mixing kind of a Mad Max-esque thing, but in the forest with whatever. So
what you're saying is the Italians are better than the Germans?
I never said they were good. I mean, that's not... Italian knockoff cinema of the 70s, 80s, and 90s isn't exactly a high bar typically to be going by here. So...
Yeah, this is still somehow worse.
Well, I think they have more charm to it. At least with those, they're like 90 minutes long, so they get through everything at a very quick
they're
pace.
In and out, yeah.
They're just going through plot points. Maybe a random dinosaur shot. Maybe
man, robot dinosaurs. That's what this needs.
Maybe there'll be some laser beams, and there'll be some cheesy effects, and there'll be whatever. whereas this felt like they've got a nice little set, a little camp set up in the forest, and they've got some nice 4K cameras looking at it, but ultimately,
do you know what it reminded me of the most as well, like, in terms of TV, what we've actually watched?
Yes.
See.
See, the Apple show. Yes. Yeah, a little bit of that.
I felt there's a lot of the same problems where it kind of feels just off and like over exposition.
Yeah, one of the things that was bugging me in this as well was just the shooting style. It kind of kept doing these sort of intense close-ups, but I think it was the lens choices that we're making, where it felt, I don't know, like instead of going for sort of a more traditional close-up where you've got the shallow depth of field so that your character sort of sticks out and it feels kind of, it felt like the camera was up close to their face, so that it was kind of distorted, and it was making it feel more, almost more documentary-like. And I don't know if that was necessarily the right thing for your post-apocalyptic sort of sci-fi fantasy show.
I felt a similar thing in the shots where there's someone watching them in the woods at one point.
And
it's that almost stereotypical shot, the kind of not quite over the shoulder because you don't see the person, but like behind the tree.
Yeah.
Like but there was something about it that was off, and I think it's kind of what you were saying there, where it's too close in, even on those shots, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, the Mrs. Voorhees is spying on the camp counselor.
Exactly.
I say Mrs. Voorhees because I was really just afraid of the 13th Part 1 thing.
Yeah.
When the killer was a mystery.
You know, I was trying to think exactly where it was I'd seen it, but I can even hear the sound effect of from that. Yeah, but I think in that movie as well, there's like a breathing sound effect when it does those those shots.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to like shit on it too much because I don't think it's like offensively bad per se, except for that one scene with the villain who is like so over the top and chewing scenery like there's no tomorrow.
When he just starts beating the dude at the end of that scene as well, it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're allowed violence because it's Netflix. It's kind of the feeling I got. It's kind of that sort of thing we sometimes talk about with like HBO shows, where sometimes they'll just like have, oh, here's some nudity just because we can. It was a similar sort of feeling I got with this scene.
It's funny actually. There's a sort of mini oneer that happens during an action scene towards the end of the episode, and I noticed it and went, I should be enjoying this more because you're doing a oneer in the middle of all this chaos, following this one character running through it, and I felt myself even underwhelmed by that oneer, and I think it was just some of the choices stylistically, in terms of. Yeah, I think a big part of it. Like, I don't think I've ever watched something before when I just don't think the lens choices were the right lens choices. I'm not a professional cinematographer. I'm not the one to be making those calls, but there's something in this I just don't like. I don't like how it looks, and I'm not talking about.
I wouldn't have put it down to the lenses personally. I don't have that knowledge, but I mean, I'm willing to take your word for it that that's what it is because it sounds perfectly plausible.
I think it is because because it's not that it's daytime during this scene. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that there's anything wrong with the the costume design. It's not that there's anything wrong with the action per se as it's happening. And maybe it could be a little more intricate and maybe some more close calls or something to make it more exciting. But it's not that that's the problem. I think it purely is a lens choice. There was just so many shots in this where I felt like this just looks, because you know what it feels like. It feels like when someone doesn't know how to. And this is going to sound really insulting, but when someone doesn't know how to shoot something properly, right? If someone just grabs a camera and says, I'm going to make a little short movie because now, like, I've got my hands on a camcorder somehow, right? And they don't even, like, think about the idea of, like, playing with depth of field or using opposite ends of the spectrum or anything like that. So when they do a close-up, they just put the camera right up in someone's face. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure the cinematographer did this knowing what they were doing and wanted this specific look.
You just think it was the wrong choice.
I just think it looks kind of bad and just doesn't work in the context for this thing.
I agree, because I didn't break it down to the exact specifics, but there was something that I kept feeling like the angles were off or it was too close.
Yeah.
If that's the lens, then that would explain it, if that's what the choice is. But whatever it is, I think we're clearly describing the exact same problem. Which means that there is definitely something to this. If
I'm misdiagnosing it, if someone who knows cameras better than I do, and there's definitely many who do, then feel free to enlighten me. But it felt like it was, they wanted the close lens, the close up sort of shot, and all it really does is kind of make it feel uncomfortably close, and I don't think I was supposed to feel uncomfortably close in scenes like when the uncle's like telling stories around the campfire, and it's like going from close up to him to close up to the kid to close up to the dad. I felt uncomfortably close to all of them. I think this uncomfortable closeness can work in a scene where someone is like, you know, maybe later on when someone's being tortured and someone's like having to watch it, that works in that scene a bit better, because it's like, oh, you're meant to feel uncomfortable, you're meant to feel kind of
but even like you like during the battle scene,
yeah,
you know, like, you know, we still got this feeling of, oh, it feels uncomfortably close, but that's not the intention of that scene. It's supposed to be not exhilarating, but you know, it's an action sequence, right?
Yeah, if you do a scene where, say, I'm thinking of like, scenes in Mr. Robot probably did this, where like a character feels like their space is being intruded. So you do like this intense close up on their face with this type of lens to make it feel like you're kind of in their face, because it's supposed to feel uncomfortable.
I think obviously Mr. Robot definitely did that. I remember talking about that. I think, you know, something we've already mentioned as well in this review. I think Better Call Saul has done that a few times.
Yeah, no, it probably has, but it doesn't do it all the time. It does it, you know, only when it's suitable.
And it's effective in the moment because it's off. It feels different to the standard.
So, yes. So, the spoilers then, just so we could talk about kind of any other plot stuff. There's not too much to talk about, other than the third party, of course. So I'm in spoilers now, so I'll just say it again before I say this. So they keep referring to this third party, this pilot of this little crash jet. And it's a futuristic crash jet. None of them recognize this technology. And he's got like a cube as well that can like float and scan him and shit, and is like a MacGuffin for the whole thing. And it'll lead the kid to the Ark, which is where he's from. But they keep referring to him as Atlantean. At least the villains do. And he himself refers to himself as Atlantean. And the idea is the kid gets the cube, he's willing to go, and the guy, as he's dying later on, as the villains are invading, they're like, promise me, like, there's information on that cube that, you know, like, humanity, everyone's in danger if that doesn't get back to where I was going. And it's, you know, it's your simple kind of fantasy journey set up. Okay, kid's got to deliver this. It feels like they're splitting up the family, though. It feels like the sister's plot's going to be separate from this kid's plot, taking this to the Ark, and then
is the sister not dead?
No, sister wakes up. That's the last shot. Her eyes open.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, I'm forgetting that last shot because it was such a moment in the.
But
sequence.
I groaned when it happened though, because I knew it was going to, because the opening of the episode's a prologue set later on where she's like the leader of the tribe, so you knew she was going to survive.
You think I remembered that by the end?
Because there's a whole thing where she's like, I'm going to find my family, which again is another reason why I think they all split up here, is that her brothers must be separated from her for the duration of the season. Which is fine, whatever. But yeah, the villains here, these aren't the crows. This tribe of like ninja warriors. They're sort of working for this woman who is taking this job from the leader of the crows. So it's kind of like it's like sort of you know, when you like subcontracted. Yeah, it's just he's subcontracted to this sort of like assassin tribe to like get this Atlantean, and his cube's important. They want the cube, and I thought they were the cube, don't they? They were a bit over the top, I thought, in terms of like how they were trying to make them so evil. And I actually laughed because they teased that, okay, whoever these people are coming for the Atlantean are vicious because they've killed this whole other tribe at this other camp. And the dad's like still trying to convince the tribe, no, the forest will protect us. We'll put him back with his crashed ship and no one will know we were involved and everything's hunky-dory. But there's a moment when this evil ninja tribe show up. And he's like pleading with him, there has to be no bloodshed, we've got who you want, we'll hand him over, there's no need for bloodshed. And they throw down the decapitated head of like the one guy they sent as a messenger somewhere, and
try and get help.
Yeah, and the guy's head like lands in front of him, and the dad still pleads like, look, please, no more violence. And then the woman who's standing next to him gets a spear through the neck, and he's still pleading, and I'm like, dude, it's too late, they're going to murder everyone, they're clearly going to kill everyone.
I don't understand why though. And maybe this is just me missing something.
I don't think you're missing it. I think it's just that it's trying to tell us that they don't leave witnesses. I think that's the idea. Like, this is just
maybe,
how vicious
but there was
they
nothing
are.
in the episode that kind of alluded to that being like their ideology. Their job was get the cube. It wasn't kill everyone there, not leave no witnesses. It was just bring me back what I need. And they're going, here you go, you can have it.
I don't have a problem necessarily, although admittedly maybe it'd have been nice if, you know, the dad, who isn't quite dead by the end of the episode, admittedly I don't think, but he just gets knocked out, but
yeah,
as he, let's say he was dying, right, just before he died perhaps, like if he said something, why you didn't have to kill us, why are you killing us, like even if you just raised the question, they don't have to answer it yet. Like just the idea that okay, this is something that the show is clearly like acknowledging that this is overly vicious.
It's so strange because they don't kill everyone. That's kind of the point, right? They round them all up so they can get information. It's like, you didn't need to do this. You could have just taken what you actually came for.
I presume they're still going to kill the rest though eventually. Like it feels like they kept some alive whilst they're here searching for the cube.
Maybe
because she gives some orders because they they torture and kill the uncle in front of because they're trying to scare the shit out of Keanu, and they like gut him and stab him and
castration, I believe.
Was it cast? I thought it was.
Yeah, because she's going on about you've got big balls, don't you?
Ah, you're right. Yeah,
and then she starts cutting in that general vicinity. So I'm pretty sure it was castration.
It looked more like stomach to me, but sure. I'll go with
I'm
it.
going from context from the dialogue here because we don't see anything. It's not like she throws the balls around or anything.
She should have done. At least that would have been like darkly funny.
It would have. And I thought this was really weird because it's like, oh, he's suffering like big time from this. He's howling agony, and then like 3 seconds later, she just stabs him anyway. It's like, I thought you were torturing. I thought you were making a point. You just killed him. Like that wasn't a point. I don't know. Just a lot of weird choices from this tribe that I don't understand.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like obviously we understand the purpose of the 3 kids, right? The 3 main characters in terms of the plot. I don't know if I necessarily got a sense to like any of them enough. Like I don't know if I ever grew to actually like any of them or got a sense of how like, oh, I should root for any of these 3 characters for this reason. Maybe the youngest one because he seems to care about people and he wants to help the Atlantean who's dying. I mean, that's maybe the one
I
thing.
think that's supposed to be the kind of the main thing in general because the dad leaves the girl in charge for a bit, right? And she comes back with the pilot and it's like, you're going to operate on him, and they're like, oh well, we should wait for your dad to get back, and she's like, no, you're doing it right now. So at that point she's committed to helping as well, still making the right choice. But that doesn't make any of them distinct, is there? All 3 of them decided that they'd help this guy. Great, okay. But that's kind of not really that much to go on.
Yeah. It's so funny, actually, because obviously the biggest thing we've really talked about here is the how it looks and its visual style. And I think it's funny that we're at this weird place now where like the standard of technology to make shows and make movies, like the bottom entry level now, assuming you're being funded enough to have like proper cameras and stuff, is so high that you get this stunning level of detail and quality and all these things. But the funny thing about that is that it kind of highlights some other things that might have been hidden by some shoddy like production value before.
It highlights the creative choices more.
Yeah.
For better and for worse, clearly, because like I say, if this was on a really low budget, shitty looking camera, we'd probably give this a lot more of a pass because we were like, clearly they're giving it a try. This is the best of what they're managing with the budget. But I mean, we'd probably still be criticizing the writing, but the look of it would be a lot less harsh on them.
But it looks, and obviously not in every way, but in a pure technical way, it looks really slick. So it has there's a weird disconnect for me with some of these new originals that aren't very good, where they still look really high quality because they're being funded, even if they're not high budget, they're still being funded enough that they're shooting them with proper high quality 4K cameras.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. So there's this, when you watch something low budget that might have charm to it from the 80s or 90s, you're watching stuff that's shot on film, shitty sets, shitty costumes. It's got
a lot of the time you can see this was a group of people who made this for cheap out in the woods somewhere. Yeah. I use the woods because that's kind of where this is, and I think it gets away with a lot more because of that, because you can feel the low budget, whereas this here, I'm sure there is a low budget comparatively.
Absolutely, yeah.
But because that low budget is still, leads to higher quality equipment now, the like comparable equipment to even high budget productions, it means that their choices are highlighted a lot more, and you can see the flaws.
There's a weird disconnect to me that I'm still kind of reconciling here, where I watch something like this and I see just like how good it looks on a pure technical level compared to other things or older things or whatever.
I think this is what we're saying a lot in terms of like cameras and equipment that they've clearly got access to, it's probably not that different equipment-wise to, say, Mr. Robot.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I haven't looked in to see what cameras they were using. I mean, I'm sure you can find that out if you really go looking for it, but
in terms of just pure, well, this is the image that it produces, it doesn't look that far off, right?
Yeah, it's just style. It's just the creative choices. It's just all these things.
And that's where the chasm is just growing.
So well, that's kind of what we always say about the internet, digital equipment. Both the best and the worst thing about the technological revolution of the past 20 years. The best thing about it is that anyone can make a movie. The worst thing about it is that anyone can make a movie. And both of those statements are equally true. So
yeah.
So
it's wonderful if you've got talent.
So at least there was a barrier for entry where if someone wanted to make something, they had to at least go through the effort of like cutting film, of splicing, of editing. They had to go through so much stuff that at least when they turned out something shit, you went, you know what? They put so much effort into this that at least I like them a little bit for doing it, even though it's
they either
terrible.
had to prove to someone they knew what they were doing, or they had to put a shitload of their own money into it.
Yes.
Whereas now it's like, I say, I could probably go and shoot something.
Not that this remotely applies to a show funded by Netflix. To make that very clear, it's just that's what I'm thinking about given this conversation.
Yeah, it's just like you say though. It's obviously wonderful because there are so many more people now who are able to make things that before were shut out for terrible reasons. Just stupid people. People who had the power to make these decisions were not the right people usually. But also, you get a lot of shit as well.
Yeah. So there you go. That is Treasure Europa episode 1. Do not be surprised that we are not doing any more. There'll be no episode 2. But thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you at least enjoyed our discussion of this. And this was through no pun intended, this was through a different lens than our normal discussions tend to be for pilots. But I think with good reason. So there you go. That is Treasure Europa, episode 1. So let us know what you thought of the episode or the show in general if you watched the whole thing, because obviously it came out last month on Netflix. You can also, of course, like, subscribe. Those things are very important on YouTube and help us find new audience members, so please do. It is the easiest and simplest and best way to support us, but you can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?